So welcome to the fourth episode of the Shy Ben podcast. Today, we're going to take a moment to talk about recruitment. It is obviously a big part of HR. Over the last few years, there have been so many new challenges for HR departments to tackle. And we're here to offer some support on how you can tackle these challenges, how we can support you as a company and make you feel like you are not alone in the craziness of the recruitment market at the moment. Michaela is joining me again on this podcast. Mick, we're super grateful for your expertise in this area on the topic of HR and your wealth of experience in different industries.
Happy to be here.
Recruitment, what's your background? Was it a thing that you did on the ground, or was it not your specific area of HR?
So I did it and I still do it. I have to say, it's not my favorite area of HR, but I think it's crucial.
You still do it, actually?
I still do it. I'm actually quite good at recruitment.
You're good at finding the right people for the right role, which it's a bit of matchmaking, which can be quite fun and fulfilling when it works out.
So that I love. I love finding the right role for the right person. And if I can share some wisdom on this aspect, it is because I don't look at necessarily technical expertise, but more importantly, predisposition for the outcome of the job and personality fit within the company. So you'll hear many speakers today and thought leaders in the area of recruitment speaking about employing the personality and the attitude rather than the individual skill. Because you can train someone to do a job, but you cannot train a personality. In yours and my job, we know that you can change personality slowly but surely, but it takes a lot of time. And it's a big risk. And therefore, if you get people with the right attitude, then you are able to build the right team. Interestingly, the recent interviews with the women's MBA coaches in the United States, this is exactly what they were speaking about. They said before they draft people into their teams, they meet the parents of the athletes to understand the attitude. Because if you have a very skillful player with a very bad attitude, then they're going to ruin your team. Yeah. Whereas if you have a less than skillful player with a very good attitude, then they'll work their hardest to make sure that they build the team. And this is key for recruitment.
I read the same thing in a book that I love called Minding Your Business. Mm-hmm. And this was written by the founder of Aveda, constantly quoting this book. And what he used to do when he would recruit people, especially when he was a smaller business, was he would try to engineer a dinner with the person's partner. Because he felt like when you see someone with their partner, you really get a sense of their personality and who they are. Not quite scalable for most recruitment teams, but just another emphasis on the fact that personality is such an important part of the recruitment process, and it's not always easy to make that assessment. And I want to just also take a step back before we dive further into this topic, into just the craziness of the market at the moment, right? I think there have been so much upheaval, from the time of COVID, the Great Resignation. Previously, recruitment companies really finding it tough to recruit the right people for the job. There were such swings in the situation here in Malta as well. We've had a real influx of third country nationals that also need to be integrated into our work cultures. Zooming out, if you had to look at the challenges at the moment, what would you say are like the things that are really the biggest struggles and the things that people really need to get right at the moment?
The biggest challenge is mentality. That is our biggest challenge. Because the market has changed, it's shifted quite dramatically, and we are still functioning with the old mentality. So no longer can we pick and choose.
It was a buyer's market before. Yeah.
So today it's an employee's market, which I think is fantastic. So you can pick and choose as an employee, you can move, you can find your way around. I see the difference in, CVs. Before you were looking for CVs with security of tenure, people that spend 5-6 years in a place. Today, people's CVs are 2 years, 5-6 years ago, we'd have looked at a CV, someone hopping, and we say, they're a job hopper. Today, a job hopper means they have experience in different industries, they have experience with different bosses. So they're going to give me a little bit more. They know more about themselves as a result. They know more about the industries as a result. And so it's the mentality that needs to change and our predisposition to judge. Recently I gave training and I challenged the people I was training with not to look up people on Facebook or social media before they interview them. And it was a shock. Why did I ask them to do this? Because what it does is it puts you at a disadvantage because you've already judged them on the basis of what you perceive their reality to be. And so what I would suggest is a change in mentality, a change in the way we approach. Mm-hmm. Are we looking for people that are just skilled? Are we looking at people that are very, very highly qualified and top of the class? Or are we looking for a mix of both?
I'm going to push you a bit on the social media thing, though, because surely more information about a candidate is better, especially if you look at it not from the place of judgment and sort of, okay, if there's something I don't like, then I just write them off. But the more information, it's very difficult to tell a person's personality in just 1, 2, 3 interviews. The more information you have, wouldn't that be a good thing?
No, because we're not trusting our gut anymore. We're not trusting ourselves. We want so much information. We've already made up our minds before we meet people. We're not giving people the benefit of the doubt. We're not allowing that experiential process to take place. If I've already decided on the basis of your social media profile...
But you can look at the social media and not already decide, right?
Well, no, it's so difficult.
Take it as a little piece of more information about it.
It's difficult. Your data points are skewed. Mm-hmm. I'm hardly going to give you my shadows on social media. Mm-hmm. My personality, I'm only going to put my best foot forward on social media. Yeah. Whereas then what it does is it prejudices the questions you ask. Mm. And I've tried it and I've tried it again. Mm. And of course it's nerve-wracking because we're so used to it. We've become deep stalkers. Myself included. I'd go, who do I know? Who does he know? What does he do? Which school, etc., etc. And it
But when you're recruiting people from overseas, you can't do that.
Exactly. So it makes us nervous, but we still can go onto social media and we still make assumptions. Mm. So this is very, very difficult. So again, back to my point, it's the mindset that needs to change. It's the way we approach.
I think if you would go to most HR conferences at the moment, they would discuss the difficulty of attracting the right candidate to your organization. I think most of the time we're always talking about turnover and it's quite high and I need to find new people and it's really hard to find the right talent. What would you say to someone who's in that same situation?
Change your tact. So I have two little stories which are very, very interesting when it comes to change your tact. Let's look at, once I interviewed a guy who was an A student. And totally A's in everything, really brilliant student. And he said, because I think I'm really good and you can see my grades. I said, yes, very good. And I didn't pick him. And I said, what I want you to do is I want you to go and work in a fast food restaurant for a summer. And then come back. Because what you lack is people skills. You lack knowing how to work with people. You lack being able to function and take a decision on the spot. And therefore, I want you to work in a high-stress environment where people just walk in and demand something fast from you. Of course, he got very, very, very offended by me. And then a second example of the way we can shift our recruitment mindset is, let's take, for example, auditors. Traditionally, so there is a crisis of auditors, Maltese auditors. So most auditors today, the large majority, are coming from overseas. Our universities and the other programs producing auditors are not coping with the demand for people in accounts. Also, the job is stressful.
Turnover rates are
very, very high. Yeah. And so I pose a question. Is there anything stopping someone who graduates in the Faculty of Arts, for example, or engineering, or architecture from becoming an accountant? The answer is no. The challenge is that entry barrier is that if I walk into an audit firm today with a Faculty of Arts degree, my Faculty of Arts degree will not be treated the same as an accounting degree. because it's not an accounting degree. So it won't be given. I won't be given the same amount of salary, despite the fact that my level of education is the same. It is the area of focus that is different. But how ready are we to take the plunge, to bring in a diverse workforce, to look at things a little bit wider? How ready are we to give the opportunity to athletes who have shown that they can work really, really hard on the field, that they're committed, that they will miss out on a lot of stuff in their life because they are athletes, but they may not get the necessary grades and the necessary level that we were expecting. How ready are we to take a chance on people that don't fit the model that we're used to? And this is what we need to change.
Yeah. It's really interesting because you're talking about this where we're at a moment where we're looking at ATS systems and we're discussing, do we need to filter CVs using AI? Right, so there are some systems that are doing that now. If we do that, we're going to be missing these gut decisions, this human ability. We're going to sort of base our filtering, the first level that we do of filtering candidates to AI. We're going to totally miss all of these opportunities.
100%. Unless you tune AI. So I find AI extremely fascinating and very, very, very useful. But it can never replace the human gut. It can never replace the familiarity of an HR function with CVs. Yeah. Because the more you see, the more in tune you become. Yeah. At the beginning, you take 20 minutes to look at CV. Yeah. Today, I'll take 3 minutes and I'll tell you exactly where their strong points are. But the problem is the approach. We have a predisposition to approaching a CV negatively, critically, rather than looking at it and saying, okay, with this skill set, what added value will this individual bring to my team?
The thing is, if you have a candidate that doesn't quite fit the mold of the people usually in that occupation, then you need to have very good training. Because, okay, if you have someone with an arts degree walking into an audit firm, you need to be able to train them well. And most companies don't actually have very well structured internal training systems that you can have these out-of-the-box characters and really train them to integrate in your organization well.
So we need to adapt.
Yes.
In fact, most audit firms do have lots of training and can adapt easily. I'm not telling you to bring someone from an arts degree and make them into a software developer. You can do it. I have a friend of mine who has done it. But it will take a little bit more time.
Well, when you think about the rate of change of the work that we are going to be doing and the rate of change that is expected with AI, it has been said that the people who are really going to sort of adapt to the new workforce are going to be those people that can learn and relearn and unlearn and learn new skills the fastest. Because realistically, we're constantly having to adapt to new technology, and the rate of pace of that is even bigger.
Yes, and what you get is, so of course I'm a big fan of the Faculty of Arts because I'm a graduate of the Faculty of Arts, so I'm a big, big fan. And what it does give you is an analytical skill that is missing from a lot of graduates. An understanding of analytics, a joining of the dots that you don't get necessarily elsewhere. So if you look at audit firms today, one of their biggest challenges is getting auditors to actually draft know your clients and compliance documents. That's never going to be the case with a Faculty of Arts graduate. So we need to think out of the box and bring in a difference. But it is, again, the mindset. If I'm looking at a CV and I'm looking at it from the point of view of elimination, then it's going to be a challenge, rather than looking at the CV and taking a chance. Yeah. I mean, we've done many interviews, you and I together, and we know what it pays to take a chance. It pays to give people a chance and to be a bit creative. But one of the biggest challenges about recruitment is that the general rule, you can assume that mostly people are recruiting people in their likeness and image. So you'll find the same kind of people. Why? Because it's our comfort zone.
Yeah, that is so true. We do.
So when you look into a CV, you're looking for reference points with yourself.
Yeah. Things you can relate to.
Yes, exactly.
Which obviously in today's recruitment environment is actually really unhelpful. When you think that 30% of people are coming from a different culture, might have had a completely different life experience, might have skills that are actually coming from a different set of circumstances than your own. I actually have seen this even with my own team. You can sort of see the tendency of a head of department to recruit people who have similar strengths that they have. And actually, when you think about it, the makeup of a strong team is the opposite. We should have a lot of sort of diverse skills and people with different strengths coming together.
So when I worked in government, one of my heads of department, who was extremely wise, not easy but very wise, and he always said, I will always recruit people with a different set of skills to me. Because what is the point of recruiting someone with the same skill set as myself? Now, that is considered to be a challenge to many leaders. People don't feel safe when you bring in something different, which is normal. It's a normal reaction. Yeah. But if we were to be able to feel safe with our skill set to the point of bringing in people that are going to bring in another skill set, which will support mine, then it's much richer for the organization. Yet it's very, very difficult. And this is why we're struggling in this environment. If you look at a CV and all of a sudden the CV is from Colombia, I have no clue what level of education this university in Colombia produces. How do I know? So I need to go on something completely different on the interview, on the probation period. Then probation period becomes very, very important. And this is why systems like an applicant tracking system help so much. It's because you're taking your candidate from start to finish.
I think something about the software that has stuck out to me the most and has been very surprising is actually the insights that we've been seeing. Obviously, I think it was more than a year ago now that we launched the Insights module. And actually, when you see the data of specific departments and you actually show the leaders of the department the data of their own team, most of the time there are a lot of surprises because we're not actually very good at looking at the people that we recruit and the way that we're recruiting from a bird's eye view. We're so on the ground and recruiting people without this sort of awareness. I actually have a predisposition to recruit people who have similar skill sets to me. What if I change tack and try to go down a different route? And I found that the introduction of analytics into HR has been very positive in this regard, that it's really sort of given us a mirror to be able to see what we're doing and really judge what is working and what is not in a better way.
It's about self-awareness. It's really, the mirror is a beautiful way of putting it. When we give demos, for example, on Insights, I love Insights because it just lights up the screen. And if you know where to look and you look at the numbers and you're able to look at them objectively, you're able to understand what are the best people for your team. It goes down to that granular. You're able to do it. Especially in a environment like Malta's at the moment, where a lot of your team are going to be, third country nationals or non-Maltese. Let's say just non-Maltese. Which are the nationalities that fit best in my organization? Not only that, how am I going to ensure diversity across my organization to make sure I don't get silos? Before we used to look at silos of individuals speaking Maltese. Today, you look at silos of individuals speaking different languages. And it can really have a difficult effect on an organization. So it's quite extraordinary. It's very beautiful. You're bringing in differences and challenging the status quo.
Yeah. We spoke quite at length with Renee about this in the second episode, and the difference between having a diverse workforce and having a workforce where people feel included. And I think there's a real responsibility on the HR teams when they're doing the recruitment to really be better at keeping the values of the company in mind and that personality fit. Because having someone come into your company from a diverse background, right? Third country national, different gender than is normal or whatever. That alone, if we don't match it with the values, we're really setting individuals up for failure. Whereas someone who has that sort of fit with the company culture, whatever background they come from, are probably going to feel more included because the values align more with who they are as a human being. They're going to be seen better because they have this resonance. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just, for me, it was really striking, this difference between diversity and inclusion. And are we really good at HR, as HR professionals, in the recruitment process, at making the distinction between these two?
Well, no, because the challenge at the moment is, when I worked in an audit firm, we used to call them warm bodies, is recruitment. I need X amount of people and I have X amount of people. And so we're happy and we're constantly moving. And there's no time to stop and think. But really, if we were to stop and think and look at the impact of the recruitment on our organization, we probably would take different recruitment decisions.
I mean, the cost of getting recruitment wrong is such a hidden cost, and a cost that it doesn't pop out as other costs do.
No, it's huge. And this is why recruitment needs to be done well. And so as a software, you would have an applicant tracking system. And that will take your employer branding from the beginning to the end of the recruitment process. It's crucial because it allows for a good journey and a good customer experience of members of staff that, by the way, are judging you rather than being judged. You're also judging them, but they're also judging the company. At every single step of the way, they're asking the questions. Okay, I sent in my CV. It took me 3 hours to review my CV, slept over it, sent it back in. The company never answered me. I don't want to work for a company like that. So an applicant tracking system will answer you, will acknowledge, I know that you've received my CV. 1 week passes, 2 week passes, nobody calls me. If the applicant tracking system is there, you're able to receive a call. HR are informed, and so on and so forth. And then moving on to then the analytics, you're able to understand from an applicant tracking system, where are your applicants coming in from? Are they coming in from social media? Are they coming in from a platform that you've paid to advertise your job? Are you maximizing your marketing budget for vacancy announcements? Or are you growing organically? Either way, you're going to understand where the application came in from. So you're going to make decisions which are going to cost you less money.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're a big fan at Shireven of like getting things automated, right? So that we can free up our time to do the higher value stuff. It reminds me of that quote that's been circling around recently, which said, "I didn't want AI to do the creative writing and the poetry so I could do laundry. I want AI to do the laundry so I can do the poetry." It's kind of the same thing with, applicant tracking systems, that you want to automate the administration, the legwork, so you can actually focus on how do I find the best candidate. And that is something that the human gut and the human instinct and the human ability to see the unexpected within a person and see the unexpected with their CV is till now still unparalleled.
Yeah, because how many managers and interviewing panels ask the right questions? How many people moving into an interview actually look at your CV before you walk into the room? How many of them take notes? How many of them highlight discrepancies in a CV? Questions that you need to ask. Instead, they walk in and will say, okay, tell me something about yourself. That's the first question usually. Rather than looking out for everything. Most good HR professionals, in 2 minutes, they can tell you. The minute someone walks through the door, they can tell you. So, I need to cough. Sorry. So it's interesting. How are we going to train? Again, it comes down to training. How are we going to train our interviewers to hold good, authentic interviews? Instead of looking you up on social media, having an idea of who you are, but actually creating a conversation at the table, understanding who you are, what makes you tick.
Yeah. And I think this is where we need to get better as well at leadership of organizations in really communicating the values. Because I think that really gives the people in recruitment a guide and a barometer. I've found in my experience as well that different heads of departments do look for different things and have a different idea of what the ideal avatar, right, of the right person, the right fit for our organization is. So, starting from the top of like, what is our employer brand? What are the right characters that fit into an organization? Even if they might not be the most comfortable for individual heads of department, looking at the data and be able to say, okay, these are the people that are really, really doing well. And of course, like, I'm going to have to plug Indigo here. Like having that continuity, over payroll data, HR data, recruitment data really allows you to kind of zoom out and see the bigger picture, because you need all of that data actually to be able to take the right decisions on who are the people that you're bringing into your organization, who are going to thrive, and who are going to help your organization thrive as well.
So the data's there. You're perfectly right. The data is there. What are we doing with the data? The data's on insights. It's on the applicant tracking system. It's on performance management. What are we doing with the data? Are we reading the data well? Are we taking data-driven decisions? And in most cases, we don't have time. We're resolving conflict. We're checking our emails. We're working with the operational, the day-to-day.
Yeah.
But it's too costly a process to ignore.
Yeah. And I think this is where also HR, we need to get better at communicating what those costs are, because they're not often seen. Okay, we have recruitment costs. Recruitment costs have also really gone up over these last years. It costs a lot to recruit if you're using recruiters especially. But when you have sort of the data that can help you take those decisions in a better way, you can actually get a return on investment straight away that is very powerful. But because we don't see that, we tend to kind of overlook just how important it is to really make these adjustments in our recruitment process. I mean, on a profit and loss, you can see, how much your recruitment costs are, you can see how much NI you pay for your employee, but you don't see, okay, that employee only stayed with me a year, so now I've had to train a new employee again. I've doubled my training costs. There are so many hidden costs, lost domain knowledge, lost, functioning of a good team. These costs really help us make the case for employee retention and getting our recruitment right from the beginning.
100%. I was fortunate to have worked in an audit firm. So when you work in an audit firm, you see everything. This was a big shock for me, that I had to see everything in hourly rate. And any task I did was an hourly rate. What's your base hourly rate? And then when I moved, one of my first questions was, oh my God, the interview is really, really expensive. And they looked at me and said, no, it's just our time. I said, yes, because your time is expensive. Mm. At what level are you organizing interviews? There are some companies that organize interviews as though you're walking into the FBI or the KBG. There's absolutely no need. HR, a good HR function, knows how to conduct extremely good interviews. And they look at culture fit. And they're able to tell you, this one will fit, this one will not fit. A good HR function, asking the right questions, because they've done it so often. You know what? It really, truly amazes me that in HR, the HR department is trusted to terminate employees and to have termination conversations, because they're the most difficult conversations on earth to have, but they are not trusted with recruitment conversations. Think about it for a few seconds.
You mean like HR won't be trusted to recruit without
Exactly.
approval from...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I get that there needs to be approval, but think about it. How many times have HR been called in to terminate a member of staff? This was always a bit of a pet peeve for me. Hello, the manager, sit with me. No, it's an uncomfortable situation. So if I'm able to take a very, very difficult conversation with a final, asking to leave conversation, then I'm able also to assess. And therefore, HR should always be the front line of interviews, because they have so much experience, on-the-ground experience, because they know the organization better than anyone else.
Yeah. And they can ensure consistency across the different
But very often they're not involved in the actual interviews. They're involved in the administration of the interview. Mm-hmm. And not in the actual interview. Mm-hmm. They're also not involved in the final decision.
Yeah.
So how much weight are we giving to the opinion of HR when it comes to deciding who to recruit?
Yeah.
Most HR people will tell you, I told you so. Mm-hmm. Because they would have picked it up.
Yeah. It seems like such a waste, to not involve HR in this. It almost kind of surprises me that that's still happening. I feel like we should have evolved past this.
No, we haven't. I used to. It's really, really funny. So I used to ask for every interview. I would ask the receptionist, and I would ask anyone who's spoken to them over the phone to give me feedback. I'd ask the receptionist to keep an eye out to see how they walk in, how they speak to the receptionist, how they spoke to the guards, how they sit down, what they say, and give me that feedback.
This really does sound like FBI.
No, it's not the FBI. It's basically personality. How are you treating staff at every stage of the recruitment process?
I mean, that's when people are the most authentic,
exactly.
Right?
And that's key information.
Yeah.
That's key information.
Yeah.
So if I had one of my assistants, for example, in HR call a member of staff, a future member of staff, and the telephone call didn't go well and they were, cocky or rude on the phone, I would not even interview for that reason. Because that's not the type of individual I'd like in my organization.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there are people who struggle so much with recruitment that they're taking shortcuts, which eventually come back to really create a lot of headaches for them and for the organization as a whole.
Okay, so I always smile when there are struggles with recruitment, because where we need to start from, if you're struggling to recruit, is your company culture. So ideally, companies will actually take a good look at themselves if they are really, really struggling with recruitment and retention, and understand what is stopping people from applying at a certain level with their company.
Yeah.
That tells you a story.
Yeah. That sounds like a good setup for a next episode. All about employer branding and the journey that we need to go on as companies to really hone in on that. Mick, I think we're going to land this plane here on recruitment. Is there any sort of burning things that you feel we haven't covered on the topic?
Again, I said it on our last podcast, and I'll say it again. It's all about the human connection. It's all about our ability or inability to connect with humans, to be able to get it right on that level.
Yeah.
If we start working at that level, we're then able to create a much more trusting environment where people could want to work with us rather than,
Yeah, and I think as a closing thing, I will just add, like, ideally we move away from seeing recruitment as a burden, because it can feel like a burden. It's so time consuming and takes away from other things that we need to do, to a real opportunity to build the future of your organization. I totally agree with the idea that, finding the right individuals with the right values, it can be such a game changer. One person can have a huge impact on a company. And it's really worth taking the time to make sure that we get the recruitment right, that we have all the information that we need, and that we're supporting people managing the recruitment process, because it's such an incredible investment that we're really not always aware of just how important it is for the future of our teams.
But also, and I've just thought of it, it made me smile, because we will always remember who interviewed you. Because it's such a vulnerable time walking in to a room, and you'll always, always remember it.
Yeah. And that's where our brand really starts.
And that's where the brand starts.
Yeah. Amazing, Mick. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our listeners. We are embarking on an incredible journey at Shireburn. We've just launched our applicant tracking system. Recruitment is something that we really want to support our clients. So if you want any more information about that, then contact our sales team. And me and Michaela are definitely going to be cooking up some workshops and classes to support people who are doing recruitment in the inner stuff that goes behind, right? The personality, the gut instinct, all of the soft skills that are the hardest to hone, but that can really be the game changers in this kind of work. So we look forward to sharing those spaces with you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.